أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا صدق الله العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. My dear respected brothers, elders, listeners, the verses of the Holy Quran that I've recited are the opening verses of Surah Al-Kahf, a Makki surah revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam during the end time of the Meccan era. This surah consists of 110 ayat verses and 12 rukus. The name of the surah is Surah Al-Kahf. A lot of the times brothers mistakenly call this surah Surah Qaf. Surah Qaf is also a surah in the Quran which is in para number 26. This is with a kaf, light, which means cave. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the story of the sleepers of the cave in this surah. The previous surah, Surah Al-Isra, Surah Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned a miracle which was exclusive for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In a short part of the night, he traveled from Masjid al-Haram to Masjid al-Aqsa. Then he had the honor to lead all the prophets in prayer. He was known as Imam al-Anbiya. Then from there he went to the heavens. Such an honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given to his beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now we find in this surah and the surahs to come, in this surah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about the pious people and unusual events that happen with them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam mentioned, whoever recites Surah Al-Kahf on a Friday, then it will be like nur and light for him till the next following Friday. Guidance. This surah is a protection from the test and trial of Dajjal, the Antichrist. It comes in narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned to the nearest effect that whoever learns the first 10 verses of Surah Kahf, and in another narration the last 10 verses of Surah Kahf, will be protected from the fitna of Dajjal. May Allah protect us all. Amen. Every prophet that came, they warned the people of the fitna of Dajjal. This is how severe and difficult it will be. Every prophet that came. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, if he was to come while I'm alive, then I will deal with it. Take care of it. But for every of the follower ummati has to take care of himself now. One way of protection is reading Surah Al-Kahf. If we cannot read the entire surah on a Friday, then the bare minimum that we read the first 10 verses and read the last 10 verses. And we go a step ahead, we should try and memorize the first 10 verses and memorize the last 10 verses of Surah Al-Kahf. Now, one of the greatest trials that will come upon us is the test of Dajjal. So every other trial that comes is below that. So every other trial, so if the cure to the greatest trial, the fitna of Dajjal, Allah has kept in this surah, reading it, memorizing it, understanding it, then every other trial and the test, we've got the cure in this surah. Times of fitna, the cure is in this surah. Providing we read it, understand it, and follow the instructions, guidance given. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his supplications, when he asked Allah to protect from many things, one of them was the fitna of Dajjal. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min fitnatil masih Dajjal. Every prayer that we make, we should add this on. Oh Allah, protect us from this fitna. In this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned 4 stories, each of them which teaches us a lesson of life. Before the first story, Allah begins the surah with praising Allah, Alhamdulillah. Many surahs in the Quran begin with Alhamdulillah. Almost 3 to 4 surahs. Then Allah mentions about the believers, and Allah gives glad tidings to the believers. Not just the believers, الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَاتِ, those that have done أعمال صالحة, good deeds. We have to strive, make effort, please Allah, praying salah, giving zakat, enjoining in good, forbidding evil, doing halal, staying away from haram, having a clean and pure heart. A'mal salihah, good deeds. Then Allah will give this person a good ending. He will have a lot of reward. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions whatever's on the earth is a test. Allah has put everything around us is a test. Zina. It looks nice, but it's a test to see. لِنَبْلُوَهُمْ أَيُّهُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Who's going to do good deeds? Everything is around us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam described and gave us the example of dunya, hulwa, khadira. Dunya is like sweet and greenery. When we look at greenery with our eyes, it looks nice. But it's not going to be green forever. This same greenery, what does it turn to? It goes yellow. Then what happens? We don't even think twice and we trod and stamp on this greenery while we're walking and we don't even look at it. That's the state of the dunya. It looks nice, glamorous, beautiful, but it's going to perish and it's going to destroy. But the love of dunya and how severe it can be, may Allah protect us from this. Allah has given examples of the worldly life in this surah also. So we get into the first story that has come, the sleepers of the cave. Some youngsters, to protect their iman, they went into a cave. The king at the time was an oppressor and he called people towards his worship. You have to worship me. These youngsters refused, and for the safety of their iman, otherwise they would be killed, they went into a cave. And along with them, a dog accompanied them. They tried to stop the dog, but the dog came along with them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala narrates this story. This story is telling us about their iman and how they protected their iman. And they were not all innahum fityatun amanu bi rabbihim. They were youngsters. To protect their iman, they went into this cave. And when they went into this cave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them by making them go into sleep. And they slept for 300 years. 300 years they remained asleep, and the world is running. When the sun came, وَتَرَى الشَّمْسَ إِذَا طَلَعَتْ تَزَاوَرُ عَنْ كَهْفِهِمْ, it would bypass their cave, not giving them direct light that would ruin their body, but just enough so they can survive and how much heat that they need, and not exposing them so much if the sun is on them. Allah mentioned how they slept. If you was to look at them, you would think a unique way of sleeping. وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. If someone was to look at them, he would think that they are awake, but yet they were sleeping. A way of protection. If someone was to try and come and attack them, they would think they are awake, but they were sleeping. وَتَحْسَبُهُمْ أَيْقَاظًا وَهُمْ رُقُودٌ. Then Allah mentions how He protected their body, that He made them turn on the right side, He made them turn on the left side, so their body is protected. It's not just in one place for 300 years. And then Allah mentioned how He protected them. وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَصِيدِ. The dog put his forearms at the mouth of the cave. If someone was to look in the cave, he'd be fearful. What is this? All this means of protection for them because they protected their iman. And then Allah woke them up after 300 years. They turned around to each other and asked, Kam labithtum? How long have we stayed here? And they had a quarrel between themselves. Some قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ. They're saying, oh, we stayed one day, part of a day. Allahu Akbar. They don't know how long they've slept for. So they cut this argument short, left it, and now they said, okay, we're hungry. Look at this miracle now. 300 years they have slept without any food, breathing. They have woke up from sleep, fit and healthy, not need to see any doctor. This is the power of Allah. Allah can put someone youngsters to sleep for 300 years. And this is something which the Christians, if you look in the Bible, you'll find this story as well. They have some different versions. They may have some differences, but this story is in the Bible also. It was known, it was not something hidden, that these youngsters, because they were from a high status family, their background, their names were engraved. There was a masjid that was built there after they had passed away. 300 years they woke up fit and healthy and even ready to go to the marketplace, not in need to see a doctor. This is the power of Allah, our Creator, our Sustainer. He kept them alive to show that it's not difficult for Allah if He gives someone death to give them life again. It's not difficult for Allah. Allah showed this miracle. Now they decided that we need to eat, so they go to the marketplace. 2 of them have been sent. The Quran only mentions part of the story which we need to learn a lesson from. Quran is not a book of history which is going to mention everything. They did speak probably about other things, but the Quran didn't mention that. The Quran mentioned those parts which we learn a lesson from. And the young brothers that are sitting. So what lesson do we learn? When they decided to go get their food, the instruction that was given to them was, make sure the food is halal. Because in their time, animals that were being slaughtered were slaughtered in the name of their idols. Make sure what you get is halal. فَبَعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرِقِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ. They had silver coins. They went to the city. And when they went to pay, that is when it was discovered who they are. when the shopkeeper looked at the coin and realized this is so old, he made a scene, got others around that look. And then because it was known that these youngsters, they're missing, their names were written, a warrant was sent out in search for them. So it was something known even after 300 years. Then they discovered these are the youngsters. And then subhanallah, after all this had happened, it was just so that people understand his message, they had passed away. Then the masjid was made there. And then almost there were 7 of them. These are the opinions that come. Some people say 3, some people say 4. The closest is وَيَقُولُونَ سَبْعَةٌ, 7 of them, 8th one being the dog. Mufassirin that this dog, inshallah, will be in Jannah. He helped and protected them for the safety of their iman. So this is the first story. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So when this surah was revealed, the mushrikeen, they went to the Jewish scholars and they asked that regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that how can we try and trick him? So the Jews said, ask him 3 questions. If he can answer them, he's a prophet of Allah. If he cannot answer them, then he's just making this up. Question number 1 was the people of the cave. Tell us something about them, the sleepers of the cave. Number 2, tell us about the ruh, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ, about the soul. Number 3 was about Dhul Qarnayn, the king who traveled from the east to the west. Tell us about him. And the Jewish scholars had mentioned if the answer to this is given, then that's a sign he's a prophet of Allah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked these 3 questions. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied and said that I will let you know tomorrow, but he forgot to say insha'Allah, if Allah wills. Now the wahi revelation did not come the next day, all up until 15 days. 15 days. And all the taunting from the Quraysh and mockery that Allah's left you. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. After 15 days, revelation came. وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Do not, if you intend to do something the next day or after some time, then say insha'Allah. A lesson for us that we learn, that we should not insha'Allah. We must always say insha'Allah. If we've forgotten, then we can say Allah knows. And thereafter, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed them about the sleepers of the cave and the rest of the other stories about Dhul Qarnayn. The second story is about the people of the garden, that they did not show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah destroyed the garden. This world is a test, this dunya is a test. Even when we are happy and we have good things, Al-mal wal-banuna zinatul hayati dunya, your money that you have, children that you have, is a test in the dunya. Even the good things that we have is a test. Because this money can take us towards haram. Children and the love of children can take us towards haram and disobey Allah. That's the test. Either you spend the money in a halal way, invest for the akhirah. Either put your children that are praying, reading Quran, obeying Allah, then that is a test which is passed. Otherwise, the dunya is a deception. So even good things are tests. Allah gives example of this world with rain. When it rains, we need rain, but it should be in a moderate way. If it rains too much, what will happen? Floods, What will happen to the crops? It will be destroyed. So in moderation, like the dunya, we need the dunya and the things that we have. But in moderation. If the love of dunya comes in us, it will destroy us. But we need it. Just like the example of Maulana Rumi he gives. If you are traveling and you use a ship and you're boarding a sea or a river, now to get to your destination you need the water. And you need this ship. But if you put a hole in this ship, then what will happen? The ship will sink. Likewise, we need the dunya. If we have the love of the dunya in us, then it's deadly. Hubbud dunya, the love of dunya is the root of every sin. If you see someone committing a sin, the reason is we've been told, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned, the root cause will be love of dunya. Why does someone steal for fun? Because they love wealth and money. And that love of money and greed is making them do this. Love of dunya is the root of every sin. So we have to work, get this love of dunya out of us. The love of wealth is something which is in us. Allah has put it in us, but we have to fight against this nafs and desire in moderation. If we cannot differentiate and differ between halal and haram, there's no criteria, there's no principle. Kullu halal, everything's okay. No investigation to check, what am I doing? Is my earnings halal? Is it haram? It's okay. It's fine. This is love of dunya. Not giving zakat, not giving sadaqah. That's why it comes. Sadaqah is evidence. When you put money and give sadaqah, it's a dalil, it's an evidence that the love of dunya is not in your heart. If it was, then you would want to keep this money and count this money and just look at it. Those that spend in Allah's way, this is a way how the love of dunya will decrease and come out of us. Then Allah mentions the story of Musa and Khadir alayhi salam. What happened? It was a journey which Musa alayhi salam had taken. And there were some unusual things. But this was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah wanted Musa alayhi salam to look, this is the knowledge that Allah had given Khizr alayhi salam. It means sabr, teaching us patience. Then the last story, Dhul Qarnayn. Dhul Qarnayn was a king from east to west. Allah gave him a lot of land. But he was obedient to Allah and he passed the test. Why do we read the surah every Friday? What's the reason? Because when we read this surah, it's going to remind us of these tests. World is a test. Your children are a test. What did people do to protect their iman? What happens if the love of dunya comes in us and we don't show gratitude to Allah, like the people at the garden was destroyed? Having sabr. Dhul Qarnayn was a king, but yet he passed this test obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the end of the surah, we look, the last verse is إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those that have iman and do good deeds, Allah will give them Jannatul Firdaus. Jannatul Firdaus is the highest station in Jannah. And we should make dua to Allah. Allah grant us Jannatul Firdaus. خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا لَا يَبْغُونَ عَنْهَا حِوَلًا. They'll remain there forever and ever. So when we read this surah every week, it's going to remind us about tests and trials that come in our life. What is the solution to them? And it will help us how to live our life. This will be nur and guidance from one Friday till the other. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to understand and to spread unto others. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.